Hey, listeners, welcome to Nurture Small Business Podcast, a show that provides small business owners with practical, experience based insights and tangible solutions. I am your host, Denise Kagan. My experience spans 25 years of business ownership and 10 years of manufacturing. In today's episode, I'll explain how I got a part in a play that I was totally unsuited for and what this has to do with hiring. Let's get this conversation started.
When was the last time you needed to hire? How did you go about doing it? Do you implant clever questions in the interview like, who's your favorite superhero and why? Those clever questions can tell you some things about the candidate. For instance, their imagination, creativity, ability to respond to impromptu questions, and possibly what's important to them. I'm a fan of Marvel, so you would find that out if I answered that question. They do not get you closer to understanding the skills the candidate has or how they will perform on the job, though. So let's take a look at some hiring. Hiring is often reactive. You've had a huge increase in workload, you've got some new clients, or you've had attrition from your employees, so you need to replace someone. The longer you have to wait to fit that candidate, the right person in that spot, the more stressful it becomes. And as you know, all small business owners, we have a certain level of stress anyways. And the impacts of stress build up over time. They can become harmful to you. You might experience fatigue, some exhaustion. You're not sleeping as well because you're worried about the fact that you haven't got that seat filled yet. It can impact your focus. What do you do? Do you hire somebody as quickly as possible? That might not be the answer. So let me tell you a little story about a role I was selected for. When I was in middle school, I was selected for a part in a play, Cheaper by the Dozen. Some of you might know that because there's a book and the movie, I think it's been done a couple times, out there by the same name. It is a story about a real family, the Gilbert family. The heads of the family were Frank and Lillian. And then, hey, they had a dozen or so children. So, I was chosen for that part, not because of my acting ability, because I have literally none. I was chosen because I was the shortest person who auditioned. That is one asset I never thought I would be chosen for something for. However, I was. So let's fast forward this just a little bit. I want to tell you a little bit about this amazing woman, Lillian Gilbert. So she ran her family a lot like a business, which is how the book came about. The book was actually written by two of her older children. And she herself was an author. Her books were more along the lines of the homemaker and her job in management in the home. Like I said, she ran her home like a business. She also happened to be a mechanical engineer and psychologist, the first female member inducted into the Society for Industrial Engineers, and the only psychologist to appear on a U.S. stamp. So, a pretty incredible person. Now, let's bring this back to hiring because Lillian Gilbreth also, in her writings, had connected employee happiness with retention and productivity as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So there is a connection there, a little bit loose, but there is a connection. The cost of hiring, more specifically, the cost of poor hiring. The U.S. Labor Department estimates that you will spend an extra 30 to 200% of the annual salary of a person with a bad hire. So think of it this way. If you're a small business owner and you're paying somebody a $50,000 base salary, you might spend up to $100,000 on that poor recruit. And what would that entail? Well, their salary, of course, recruitment fees, job boards, interviews. It takes time and prep to do those interviews, and there is a cost associated with that. You might also have pre-hire exams. There might be a physical exam or a background check or some type of a skills exam. And then time to train them, as well as onboarding them. There's usually an orientation period and paperwork, work with the HR department. And then if you offboard them, you've got to do all those things in reverse, essentially. So you've got exit interviews and transition time. Those are hard costs, and you can quantify them. There are also costs that are a little bit less able to quantify. The hidden costs are things like client satisfaction, morale within your team, and stalled projects. All of those things will cost your company money. So why do so many of us hire by the same way that I got the role in the play? I fit the part because I was the shortest kid. Let's stop doing that and consider another option. I want to introduce you to the book Who, WHO by Jeffrey Smart and Randy Street. I think I have it here on my desk somewhere. Let me pop it up here. Ta-da! All right. This is an excellent guide on how to hire. Their system is all about developing roles that are based on outcomes, which is what you want that person to be able to do or impact when they join your company, and competencies, which are the soft skills and technical skills. Kind of think of it as the glue that makes your company go. So, for instance, if you're hiring a business development role, being able to build a website wouldn't necessarily be an outcome that you would expect from that particular person. Instead, you might look to more solid outcomes like cultivate relationships for the company pipeline, which you can measure through a CRM, complete 50 outreaches per day, again, measurable through a CRM, even a spreadsheet, close one website deal within your first 6 months, also measurable. So in this case of the business development candidate who can also build a website, they might state their experience in business development as selling websites. Okay, this is off to a great start. The Who method actually coaches you to dig below those surface answers. So the interviewer might say to the candidate, tell me about your client base. Who were they? And then they might follow up with, how did you acquire these sales? If after probing you learn something like the candidate built 3 websites, one for their church, one for the business they were launching to build websites, and the other for a former teacher, you might start to question the validity of their business development skills and their ability to impact the outcomes you have set. So this is why role development is important. You need to understand what you need them to do, not just have knowledge of. To do, that's a verb, an action word. In this case, the experience didn't show a record of cold outreach or management of leads, nothing relating to a CRM system. So the conclusion here for me would be this isn't a viable candidate for my role. Now, as a small business owner, sometimes we're also very much in the mindset of, well, I like them. Maybe I can train them. And that's okay. But if you are considering training a candidate, and you do have to do some training with every single candidate you hire, you may want to adjust your outcomes if you are considering training them for the whole meat and potatoes of that role. So I want to share with you that we have implemented the Who method into our company. We link it to our critical skills matrix, which in a nutshell is basically the basic things that a person needs to do with the platforms we use. And we break it down by basic skill, intermediate skill, and expert skill, proficient skill. So many times in interviews, I have had people tell me, I'm proficient with Microsoft Word. And then when we get to the working interview, they're not able to add a table of contents. That is not proficient. So think about this. When people answer questions in interviews, they want to give you, they're not specifically lying, but they inflate things, certainly. And there's very much surface answers. Not to mention there's a gap between what you think proficient is and what they might consider proficient is. So there's all those things there. So again, we linked the Who method, everything from the job ad, the job description, which, by the way, the job ad is a marketing tool. The job ad, the job description, our critical skills matrix, the interview questions, and how we hire them. What has this done for us? It's improved the success rate of our new hires. And yes, we've had to do tweaks, or we've had to practice to get it right. It didn't come out immediately the same way. I would like to say that we've taken the Who method as presented in the book, and I do highly recommend that you read it. We've modified it slightly to fit small businesses because the method in the book is actually designed a little bit more for larger businesses. And our success rate, like I said, has improved. So, to give you some examples, one of my latest interviews, we discovered a candidate that was stubbornly independent. Now, they actually disclosed this in their interview that they prefer to do their work alone and that they just had the mindset that, to do it, get it done right, you have to do it yourself. The candidate absolutely had the skill set necessary to do the work. So, I advanced them to the next step. And during the working interview, they did not ask for help or clarification for anything, even when they should have. Given that my company is remote, that independence and resistance to asking for support doesn't work in our environment. One of our core competencies is collaboration. We have to be able to collaborate, work with each other, ask each other questions, and rely on each other. It's extraordinarily important in a remote environment. Another candidate disclosed that they were let go from the job. This isn't an immediate disqualifier for me. I'm just saying. However, the follow-up questions and the answers actually showed a track record of an underdeveloped interpersonal skill from that candidate. There were subtle clues to this in the interview, and had I not asked those followed-up questions, honestly, I would have just considered it nervousness. And a lot of interviewers do that. The challenge here is that candidates practice their responses to the questions. It helps them overcome some of their anxiety, nervousness about a job interview. I get it. And these surface responses are what you need to get past as an interviewer. Interviewers are rarely taught how to probe to get below those surface responses and find out really what the true crux of the situation is. So when you're able to do this, you open up so much more insight into what a candidate is able to execute, if they can accomplish the outcomes that you set, and you get to discover if they're a fit for you, your team, by uncovering their competencies. Are they professional, energetic, proactive, independent, thoughtful, collaborative? Every role needs something a little different. For an accountant, you want somebody who's methodical, attention to detail. You don't want somebody that's necessarily overly energetic because you want them to be slowed down enough to do their work with detail. It's two different ends of the spectrum. If you'd like to learn more about developing roles and how to interview in the Who method style, reach out to me. I'm available by email and through the websites for all of the DCA brands.